more helpful in both substance and in amount than the prior administration that just let people die over there. But I thought the acknowledgement had been the aid was provided, but now we're told this is an ongoing crime. So those two statements don't seem to work together well. But, you know, the double standards, they serve one party well. When it comes to the obstruction of Congress, the position of the majority is a tyrannical position. When we ask for something, you either give it or we're throwing you out of office. Never mind, we don't know what we're going to charge you with. We figure if we keep requesting enough documents, kind of like Chairman Schiff getting phone records and release them, maybe we can intimidate people by getting their records and releasing them enough that they'll do what we say. That's tyrannical. And in fact, when we look at obstruction of Congress, violation of the rules, the majority could have gone ahead and passed a tyrannical rule and said, we're not going to allow the minority to have a minority witness day, even though it's in the rules, because we're tyrants and we don't care. But they didn't pass that rule. It's still part of the rules. So once this thing is rushed through, probably tonight, whenever, through the Rules Committee, they'll probably come out with a rule, as Ranking Member mentioned earlier, and say, gee, all such points of order are waived. You know, all of the times that the majority violated the rules, we're going to waive those, and nobody can raise them to stop this impeachment. That really is abuse of power. It certainly is. But, and I had a document prepared to offer as an amendment in the nature of a substitute, which would just change the president's name to that of Chairman Schiff and Chairman Nadler regarding abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, because there are plenty of bases for that, but it would not have been rule germane, so I wasn't going to waste time. But obstruction of Congress, when there is no referee, there is no adjudication, there's nothing but a majority that says, you give us what we want until we find a crime, or we're going to throw you out of office. That is so unreasonable, especially given the history of the last 3 years. When the charges came and the charges went, the president was, I think it was a huge mistake for him ever to allow Don McGahn to testify for 30 hours when it was a bogus charge to begin with. They're setting perjury traps. Thank God Don McGahn didn't fall into one. But this is even more outrageous. Give us what we demand or we're going to throw you out of office. We can't, you know, there's another thing that could have been done besides going to court. Could have passed a bill requiring the president to do certain things, turn over certain things, and gotten the Senate to agree, president vetoes it, you override the veto, then you, which is kind of what happened to Andrew Johnson, then you could really have a legitimate obstruction of Congress. It's not just obstruction of a majority in one half of the Congress. But that wasn't done either. And even if that had been done, either the president or the Congress would end up having to go to the Supreme Court to say, to get the courts to say this was a lawful act. But in the case of Congress and Andrew Johnson, it was an unconstitutional act to say he couldn't fire the Secretary of State. So either way, you got to end up in court at some point before it can be an obstruction of Congress. But the majority was in a hurry, and when the majority, this majority is in a hurry, then justice is undone, and so is our future. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does Ms. Scanlon seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word.